Staff, if you're able, please activate your video when you are speaking. All panelists have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Please continue to use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. City staff will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the Transportation Commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair Kovich, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Joe. Aiden, if you call a roll, please.
Sure. Charles Miazzi.
Present.
Barbara Harrington McKinney. I don't see Chris McCahill.
Here.
Ann Kovich.
Here.
Denise Jess.
Here.
Patricia Bennett.
Here.
Bridget Brown. I don't see it. Bill Bremer.
Here.
Carl Cleans.
He's excused. Right.
Yep. And then both Robbie Weber and Darren Wozniewski are excused.
Okay. Thank you. We'll watch for the other folks. Everybody have an opportunity to look at the minutes from last time. Chris?
Move approval of the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll assume a unanimous consent vote. Unless anybody wishes to note vote or abstain, a vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. Aiden, do we have any public comment this evening other than the emails that are already saved out there in Legistar?
There are none. No.
Okay. How about disclosures or recusals this evening? Okay, seeing no hands. So we'll move on to item 2. Justin?
Good evening, everyone. So this action before you is to approve a contract with Masabi, company for fare collection equipment, as well as amending our capital budget to pay for it as well, using 100% federal funds. So this is the result of several years worth of work. Actually, when I arrived here in Madison, there was a commitment to complete a fare study to look at our fare collection methods, but that study had not been done yet. And so through late 2020, Metro staff worked alongside city finance staff to complete a kind of comprehensive review of our fare collections. We presented the results of that in early 2021 to the Policy and Planning Board, where we highlighted a series of various trade-offs that come with fare collection. And all of it was predicated on the fact that our existing fare collection system just isn't working well, both from a convenience factor for passengers. People really just don't like it. It doesn't offer the options that people want to see. And from our perspective as an agency, it was pretty burdensome from an administrative standpoint. The machines break down often, and don't produce great data, and so there's just a lot of challenges there. So with that in mind, we presented the results of this fare study to the Policy and Planning Board, and then moved at a later meeting to basically get their recommendations on what a new fare system should look like. And those are linked in the Legistar item for this. If I'd encourage you all to go back and look at those presentations, or even view the actual meeting presentations, where we spent about an hour probably in explaining all those systems. So, but at the end of it, they did make a recommendation for what a new fare system should be, and that included a new system to include everything except for cash on board collection, which we would continue to use our existing system for that purpose only. So the existing machines would turn into basically a dumb cash box to continue to collect cash on board. But everything else would go through this new account-based system. That system, the intent behind it was to be more convenient for passengers. So allowing us to use mobile phones for payments, allowing us to access to account features through multiple retail outlets, not just the Madison Metro office, to board at all doors, and to speed up the boarding process in general, so that the bus spends less time sitting still while passengers try to board and fumble with magnetic stripe cards that don't work half the time, and also to better integrate with our partners like UW in using their existing media like student ID cards as the bus passes, so that we don't have to go through the hassle of distributing new cards and equipment. Another thing that this should do is to better our coordination with those partners. Right now, it's pretty burdensome on them to distribute all of these passes materials, and so by making it more convenient with passengers, we also make it more convenient for our partners because they don't have to distribute things. They would have their own portal to log in and activate and deactivate users in real time. We would be able to reduce our administrative costs. Like I said, we spend a lot of time fixing those machines, and these new system should be much simpler and kind of reduce the complexity of the existing machines to just collect cash, which it does that part pretty well. It's the pass management that doesn't do very well. And then finally, to be more equitable, our existing system offers a lot of benefits to those who have the money to shell out for a monthly pass at the beginning of the month. It's certainly much cheaper for an everyday user to use a monthly pass, but not everybody can afford to pay the upfront cost of a monthly pass. And so we do have people who use the system on a daily basis, yet end up paying nearly $100 a month in individual rides just because they can't afford the upfront cost of a monthly pass. And so with a new system and some more technology around that, we have the ability to do what's called fare capping, where people basically still get charged $2 per ride, but they charge $2 per ride up until a cap, and whatever that monthly cap is set at, every ride after that is free. So everyone gets the benefit of that without having to shell out the upfront cost. And we also have more ability to implement half fare programs or other benefit programs for those who qualify, and charge them slightly less than the full fare. And we can design that system in however we and you as the Transportation Commission ultimately decide to design it. So this new system is intended to have a lot of those benefits that and give us a lot more levers to pull to enhance equity and convenience and reduce our administrative burden. So that is, in a nutshell, kind of what the direction was, or the indication was from the Policy and Planning Board. So with that in mind, we went and designed and built this RFP for fare collection vendors. And we received, I believe, 9 proposals early this year. And from that, they ranged quite wildly in price from, I think, a little over 3 million all the way up to almost 7.5 million. And ultimately, we reviewed those proposals, scored them, and shortlisted 2 of them, Masabi and Flowbird, for an in-person demonstration. So they actually brought their equipment here on site. We assembled a team that included Metro staff as well as IT and finance staff to review that demonstration and review their proposals again. And then ultimately, after that demonstration, we selected Masabi as the high scoring vendor. A couple of things about Masabi. They are probably one of the largest, or probably the largest vendor in this space right now. They've they've won a lot of new city projects. I, in the memo, kind of outlined a handful of those that they're doing currently. So we feel strong that they've got a strong base, and they're a well-established company that have been doing this for a while. So they've got a great product. The demonstration really showed that it was very responsive. We even went up with the card and tried to trick the system into tapping the card and pulling it away too fast, or just like swiping it by really quickly. And it responded very, very well, and seemed to be very little room for error there. That is a system, personally I've experienced with other systems like this, where you tap the card and it takes a second or two to recognize, and by that time you've already walked away. And there's just some usability things there that are sometimes of concern. That was not a concern with this system. It was instantaneous. It read the card correctly. We changed things in the back-end database, and then once you tap the card, and then immediately had updated in their system. And so we feel confident it's a really good product that people are going to like. And they had a very strong implementation plan. These systems are nothing if you don't actually implement them correctly. And so they had a very robust plan around how to implement this, how to customize it to our needs, how to roll it out to customers and communicate that through marketing videos and things like that. And so we felt very confident in their ability to deliver on the project. They were not the cheapest. They were actually the second least expensive. Flowbird was a little cheaper. And that cost difference was primarily due to two things. One was the implementation plan. Masabi was nearly $500,000 more in staff hours for the implementation. And we really felt that that's an example of getting what you pay for. In some of our discussions with references in other cities, one of their biggest regrets is that they didn't spend enough time getting the implementation right. And so they put a product in the field that had errors, and the customers had to complain about things, and it just kind of eroded confidence in the system before they really even got going. And so many other systems talked to us at length about the importance of a strong implementation plan and the cost associated with doing that. And then the other piece that Flowbird was slightly cheaper in was in the actual ticket vending machines or kiosks themselves. Those would be the machines that allow you to add cash at a BRT station to add cash to your account. So those were really the only two pieces that Flowbird was cheaper on. And like I said, half of that was we actually feel that we needed to pay more to make sure that we got a strong implementation. So that's all I've got at a high level, but I'm happy to dig into more detail anywhere that anybody would like to.
If you could just, I'll ask my question later. Denise, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. Thanks, Justin. I'm excited about the new fare system. So, of course, I've got lots of weedy questions about accessibility for folks with disabilities. So if they're not pertinent here, we can talk offline, but things I'm hoping that were tested when you met with the vendors, so a lot of times vendors, this is my regular everyday experience, vendors will tell me that their software hardware is accessible because it passes the artificial intelligence testing for accessibility, but then when real people go to use it, it has flaws. So, I'm curious what kind of testing happened around accessibility of the kiosks. Is there a tactile thing with the fare card so that I know when I'm tapping that I'm tapping the right, portion of the card, or does that not matter? So I just, I know that this is going to cause anxiety for folks with blindness and low vision to have a significant shift along with, the buses changing. And so the more we can work together on, letting folks know how this is going to work and the assurance that it is actually accessible. If I go to put money on my, on my fare card with my cell phone, is the app going to be screen reader accessible? Just all of those really weedy things that I know are going to be significant anxiety points for people.
Yeah, thanks. So we did evaluate accessibility. Certainly, I can't say that we, 100% tested everything until we actually go through the implementation process. I do think that it will be helpful to have you and others test this before we put it in the field to make sure that we've worked out all of those kinks.
Great.
But at a high level, yes, the actual reader on the bus. That was one of the things we tested to make sure that if you didn't hit it quite right, does it still register? Yes, it does. There is both an audible and a visual signal as to whether or not you are properly validated. On the machines, the kiosks, those do have Braille service as well as text to speech if you plug in the headphone jack. And they also are all designed to where they're at the proper height so that if a person with a mobility device can still activate and use them. So
awesome, thank you.
We checked all the boxes that we knew to check, but I'm sure there are still, the proof is in the details, right? So
exactly.
We do still, I believe, again, going back to that implementation plan, once we've got a fully working prototype, we need people to test it to make sure that it's working properly and we can adjust before we fully roll out. So.
Awesome. Well, the things I'm hearing, I'm really happy about so far. So absolutely happy to work with you all on testing. And then, so thank you so much. And then the other question I had was, how does the service work for those people that are unbanked?
So that's one of the things I didn't mention in here, this creates an account where they can add value to their account and then use that value to pay. There are multiple ways you can add value to that account. One is through the app with a credit or debit card. For those with bank accounts, that's certainly the most convenient way. For those without bank accounts or who would prefer to work in cash, there's two options. You can reload at those kiosks at any of the BRT stations. So you can basically tap your card and then just put in cash in the machine. It will just automatically go onto your account. Or you can also go to one of a retail network. There was a draft map in the memo I put in here, but basically they work with a series. They'll work with a subcontractor named Incom, who owns the gift card networks. So like if you go in a Walgreens or CVS, you see those maybe those stacks of gift cards for Best Buy and whatever else. They own that system. And so they have a partnership with these retailers where their point of sale system at the cash register actually links to the back end of their system. And so we would be able to do the same thing here. So any retailer in their network, anyone would be able to go into that retailer, present their Metro card as well as $5 or $20 or whatever, and they would scan it and accept the cash, and it would automatically go onto their account. So
awesome.
Right now, that's primarily Walgreens and CVS, but they did indicate that they're willing to work with other vendors that are willing to work with them, or other retailers. And so if there are specific retailers that we think are filling a void that maybe there is no other option in that particular area, they have indicated they're willing to take on additional retailers. So,
thank you. That's all super helpful. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Denise. Alder Riadzi, go ahead.
Yeah, first I want to say, Justin, thank you for the great presentation and all that you do. This is a great thing. I can't wait to see it come to fruition. But one thing I wanted to ask, if we thought about this relating to the bus pass, especially the low fare bus pass. We talked about seeing if there was any way that we can get other locations where there might have been the Warner Park Community Center, making sure that when we speak about equity, making sure that everybody can get a hold of those bus passes.
Yeah, so I think that's a great thing about this system is that it doesn't rely on individual places. So right now we have our Metro ticket office and then really just 2 other places in the city where you can get these low income passes. I think the nice thing about this system is that we would, once this new system is implemented, after a person has been registered and qualifying for a low income program, they wouldn't have to go anywhere special anytime again. They would be able to go to any kiosk, any retailer, and just reload the value on their account, and they would never have to go out of their way to go across town to go to this one particular location they need to get to use their low income pass. So I think and in the meantime, while we're working to implement this new system, Alder Miadzi, we've had conversations about adding additional retailers in the short term. And Mick on our team is actively working on that, both with Warner Park as well as a place on the west side where there's currently no retailers at all. So
Okay.
I don't have an update on when that will happen, but he's actively working on it.
Okay, I know it's been a few months, so if we can touch back where he's at on that, and definitely see if we can definitely make that one of the hubs while we're doing this, because some people while it's getting it's good to have that card before it, so people can access that and do what we want to do with it. So yeah, just keep me posted about that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Alder. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Sam. Justin, what anticipated, if it was in there, I didn't see it. When is the rollout of the program? Do you anticipate it to be started, the new equipment to be used?
So we expect, part of it depends on when we actually get a contract signed.
We lost you there, Justin.
Sorry about that. My dog started freaking out. So part of it depends on how long it takes us to get a contract signed. Hopefully in the next couple months that's signed, and then we'll kind of be off to the races. I'd expect next summer to start to see some kind of pilot rollouts, maybe not a full-fledged implementation, probably till the end of 2023. And then in summer of 24 is when the BRT stations would come online, and therefore those kiosks would be operational. So it'd kind of be in phases, I'd say, starting in the summer of 23 and kind of finishing in the summer of 24.
I think what you indicated with some of the larger partners, like for instance UW, that our bus passes down there are starting September. They end August 31st. So we're gonna. So I don't know, that obviously is a significant savings for. Yeah, or I don't know, for the university certainly, but I don't know, also maybe for you, but I think that'll be nice if that can be rolled out. I think that's obviously it's a critical date. Is that end of August?
And I think that will be our first rollout is maybe to doing some of those past programs because that we just have to make sure that the card is validating. We don't have to deal with payments or anything like that. So
right, because
it's a little bit easier.
The partner takes care of the payments. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Denise, go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, all. I have one more question, Justin. How will fare payments go with paratransit? Any changes to that system?
Yeah. So that's the other nice thing is that this is, right now we only accept cash for paratransit unless you've kind of prepaid for your ticket by buying passes in advance. And so this will allow us to accept this account-based payment for paratransit as well. So it will actually, as part of our technology project, which is the other project that we've got going on, we'll we'll be installing tablets in the paratransit vehicles so that they have turn-by-turn directions, and all of that, and have better tracking of where they are and timing and things. But then this project will come in and we'll be able to install an app on those tablets that enables those tablets to be used as fare readers. And so they'll be able to accept this account-based systems in the.
It's okay, Justin. Don't worry about it. It happens. It happens, Justin. Don't worry about it.
We'll be able to accept the fare collection or the account-based system on the paratransit vehicles.
Awesome, and I'm excited about the turn-by-turn too. I think that's going to be an excellent addition. So thank you so much.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. Kind of a related question. I know we've talked about this along the way, but with this vendor, what are the possibilities of maybe having a single platform for multiple services someday, like B-Cycle, et cetera?
Yeah, so we explored that quite a bit with B-Cycle in particular. They use a different RFID frequency, so the kind of communications frequency at the actual docks themselves. B-Cycle uses a different one, and actually none of the fare collection vendors could directly emulate that. But what they can do is provide a deep connection in the app, so that it shows up, but when you click it, you got to go over the B-Cycle app. And the other thing that it can do, and it's actually an option in this Masabi contract, is to integrate fare payment into the transit app, which I don't know how many of you have used that, but it's kind of it's a transit tracking, where's my bus, trip planning type of app, and transit app has already integrated with B-Cycle for unlocking bikes, and so this offer, even though we can't operate B-Cycle directly through our app, we can integrate into another app that they are directly integrated to. It's a fairly expensive option, so we haven't decided if we want to move forward with it or not, but it is an option available to us.
Good to know. Thanks.
Hey, thanks. Justin, there are some, Bill, go ahead.
I was going to make a motion for approval of the resolution.
Okay. Sure. If I could just ask one quick question. Justin, could you just comment? I want people to realize, which they may, that this will be back to us again for several actions in the future. So this is really just the beginning of what we'll see. So you want to just briefly cover that, and then we'll go to Bill for the motion.
Yeah. So this action is just approving the contract. There's a lot of design work that'll go into this before we're implementing. Things like what is the registration process for the low-income pass program? What is the fare for the low-income pass program? Is it half fare? Is it 25% off? Is it 75% off? What is that? What are the cap amounts? Is it a monthly cap? Is it a weekly cap? Is it a daily cap? Is it some combination of all three? What is the amount of the cap in each case? So there's a lot of those sorts of details that need to be worked out. And so we expect to be working with the vendor to kind of create this design document that outlines a lot of these different decision points, and then work with you all to determine what they should be, and then ultimately have you approve it once we've gotten to a point where we're comfortable moving forward with it. So yeah, expect to see that once we get them under contract and we've worked with them for a few months, we'll start having that design document put together and put those parameters in place, and then bring it to you for review and then approval.
Yeah, thanks, Justin, because I think it addresses some of the concerns that people were asking about. So you will see, have an opportunity to make some decisions with regard to these things, like low income process, Alder Miazzi, and some of the other things that we've been talking about will have some decision points in the future. So Bill, go ahead. Thanks, Justin.
So I make the motion for approval of the contract in this resolution.
as well as the budget.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. And Denise?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing no hands, we'll assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or ask for a roll call vote. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, the motion passes unanimously, and we'll look forward to hearing back from you soon, Justin, and great move forward. Great, thanks. All right, so we'll move on to item 3, which is Pinkney Street. So I think we have Jim and Reed here this evening.
Yep, I think Reed's going to do the presentation on the project, and I'll be here to answer some questions.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Reed, go ahead.
All right, is everyone able to see my screen, the presentation?
Yes.
Great. So we have 2 slides here showing, well, first of all, this is Reed Stiley of City Engineering, going over South Pinkney Street between East Doty Street and East Wilson Street. We're bringing forward some geometrics for the South Pinkney Street and our proposed routing for bikes through this bit of the corridor. And so this display here is kind of showing the current layout of said street. So we have this map is oriented with East Doty Street on the left, East Wilson Street on the right, and South Pinkney Street going left to right. The proposed design here of major note is how the bicyclists are routed off of East Doty Street and onto East Wilson Street via this 5-foot bike lane that runs more in the center of the street around this pedestrian median that I guess bisects the Block 105 and Block 88 developments. So we're proposing this section here. I'll zoom in a little bit. The geometrics themselves are to have a 12-foot driving lane going through on the south side with this more or less 7-foot clear bike path up to the curb of the median, and then on the other side having 7 foot and 19 feet to these to the face of the bay. These bays are more or less temporary loading, unloading, valet bays for the development. The hotel here, and then at the intersections, like I mentioned before, the bike lanes are on the inside along the dividing lines of the street. Here it's still 5-foot bike lanes with 18 feet on both sides, and showing the green bike boxes on both intersections here for allowing for better turning movements and safety for the bikes as they would be turning onto these one-way streets. The idea here is East Doty Street, bicyclists would be able to make the right turn without impacting traffic, also making the right turn here, going straight. And then the same thing on East Wilson Street, which I'll zoom out to the next slide here, showing the East Wilson Street improvements planned for the future, I believe 2024. This 2-way cycle track on the south side of East Wilson Street. So this then would, having the bikes more or less in the center of the road here on South Pinkney Street would allow for that to be unimpeded by the turning movements of cars turning right onto East Wilson Street, and then allow them to be able to move to the cycle track without having a crossing by a car or a vehicle.
And just to chime in here quick, Rita was kind of touching on this. The primary benefit of having the bike lane up against the median on South Pinkney Street is that the bike lane would not conflict with any of the turning movements on or off of Pinkney Street, with East Doty Street being one-way eastbound and Wilson Street being one-way westbound. Traffic turning on and off Pinkney Street would not have to cross the bike lane in either of those movements. So that's kind of why we're proposing with the bike lane up against the median.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. I guess just zooming out here too, just so you can see the scale of where we're located at and how this kind of would then tie into the other side of East Doty Street and also on East Wilson Street here. So it's more or less aligned for the continuation of bikes using this other side of Pinkney Street to be able to continue going along if they need to get to the Wilson Street cycle track. I think those are the major design features of this section of Pinkney Street.
I have a couple of other quick notes to add. So the outside curb lines on this proposed South Pinkney Street project are pretty well set, and those have been part of the designs for the redevelopment projects kind of going back a few years here already. So really what we're looking at with this project is finishing off the pavement, constructing the median, and then doing the pavement markings on South Pinkney Street. And then looking back at where it's tying into the cycle track on Wilson Street, we realize that there's definitely some details that we need to work out there, but the majority of that would be done as part of the Wilson Street project in 2024. I believe it's when we have that scheduled to implement that cycle track.
Okay, comments or questions for Jim or Reed? Or I think Renee is on as well. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. Just start by saying I really like it for the reasons you laid out. Like, it avoids the loading area. The left turn movements work really nice. I guess the only question I have is why we're narrow at either end. Why we're narrowing? Why we're keeping that 18 or 19 foot lane and narrowing the bike path down instead of just giving the bikes more space there, especially if the bike is trying to get into the green to make that a right turn or something, why wouldn't we want to give them more take of the road?
We can take another look at this, but I think the primary intention about leaving a little bit of a wider travel lane space there was more for some of the larger vehicle turning movements that we do expect these bays to be used as loading zones too. So we're trying to make sure that we are providing space so that they didn't actually have to encroach on the bike lane to make those movements.
Got it. I mean, maybe in that case, at least on the where the cyclists are entering the green and maybe making that right, it seems like it wouldn't hurt to give them more space. And if a turning vehicle has to encroach every once in a while, so be it. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, it looks good.
Thanks.
Okay, other comments? Or Renee, did you have any thoughts about that in the turning?
No, just that, this is kind of a unique location where we would expect, coaches, buses, that kind of thing. So we want to ensure that that works, but this is a very nice movement, to get to the planned two-way cycle track or that one-way Pinkney bike lane as well, with certainly a lot less conflicts than a normal setup like this would have.
Good. Other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any hands. Jim and Rita, have you gotten all the info that you need?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, last call for comments or questions. Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have item 4, update from TPPB. Chris, it looks like you're it tonight, and Alder Harrington McKinney's not here. Maybe you want to update us on the August 1st meeting, and maybe we can talk a little bit about Complete Green Streets as well.
Sure. I actually wasn't prepared for it to come up so fast this time. I'll just glance back at the agenda and
Sure.
run through it. It basically there was some proposed policy changes to how the TIP gets selected. That's the Transportation Improvement Plan, which is basically how projects get slotted in for funding. We've been talking for a while about how to make that a little more data-driven and cleaner, that whole process. So a little bit of discussion about that. And then the city wanted a green light from TPPB to apply for a grant for the federal Reconnecting Communities program. That's a program geared towards basically reconnecting urban highways. So it could be adding new connections across the Beltline, for example. What that application might look like is still up in the air if we pursue it, but the city wanted authority to move forward if they want. And finally, a presentation from Tom Lynch on transportation subsidies and transportation demand management. Kind of some interesting stuff that made its way into that. So folks could watch that presentation at TPB, or a similar presentation that he did for DMI recently that is also available online somewhere.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. We also have Transportation Policy and Planning Board meeting coming up on Monday, August 15th. And we haven't had a joint TC-TPPB meeting recently because we've been doing a good job of inviting each other's members to attend and watch our meetings and keep ourselves updated that way. But Complete Green Streets will be at the Transportation Policy and Planning Board this Monday, August 15th, starting at 5 o'clock. You should be receiving copies of the agendas, and you should receive a Zoom invitation. And at their agenda meeting this week, they did discuss inviting TC members to participate in the discussion, suspending the rules and allowing us to do that. So we could have like a mini joint meeting and allow people to participate. And Complete Green Streets is something that we talk about it all the time here at TC. As we talk, just as we did talk about, who has priority, the bicyclists or the vehicles or the trucks, and who has priority, the pedestrians or the vehicles, or parking versus pedestrians and vehicles. And we have these discussions just about every TC meeting as we're looking at projects. So I'm encouraging everybody to hopefully you can attend and participate. Chris, go ahead.
Yep, and I'll just add to that the same thing I said for the transit network redesign. I think folks here at TC have some insight on street design questions and issues that come up that folks at TPPB don't necessarily. So if that's in your wheelhouse and want to attend, I'd encourage you to.
Yeah, great.
I think hopefully that will make it so that if we get those things into the Complete Streets Guide, then we don't necessarily have to work through them as much here. So I think that's part of the intention.
Yeah, for sure. And if, once Complete Green Streets moves forward, if we have the level of hopefully detail as some of us are hoping to see, as there are comments or questions from the public and people say, well, why are you doing this? or why am I losing my parking? We can point to Complete Green Streets and say, this is the modal hierarchy, and this is the policy that's approved by the city, and we're following the policy. So as Chris mentioned, it'll give us a little bit more ability to have a framework to use as we're making these decisions. And I think we've been doing it already, following some of the priorities that have been discussed. So comments or questions about TPPB. And if you don't get the agenda or an invitation, you can let Aiden know, and he'll make sure that you do. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks. We've had a couple of resolutions that we have approved in the last couple meetings regarding giving approval for the city to make application. And Chris mentioned one of the programs, I think, or in his discussion. But as and those proposals that are due to the federal government are due in the next few months. Will those, when those letters get actually go out from the city to the feds, will those letters go to the TPP? A copy of those?
I would think not, but Tom Lynch, do you want to answer that?
No, they probably won't. I think we're really chasing about 4 of these grants. 2 of them are due in September, and then 2 of them are due in October. And so we'll probably be racing to get the applications in, and that's one reason, because we have a limit. The end of August and early September is kind of a strange time in the city calendar, in that we don't have as many meetings. You know what I mean? So that's why we got approval to submit beforehand, before we know all the details of what we're submitting. So
I guess that wasn't my question.
Okay. Yeah.
My question was, after you have made the proposals, submitted them, will those then be submitted to the transportation policy and plan?
They could be. We could do that. Like, for instance, the reconnecting communities, we don't know what connection we're going to pursue, but but once we find out the most competitive one, when we submit that, we could
I think people would be interested in seeing what you finally do submit.
Yeah, and similar,
because I don't know, it may take a while for those to get sifted and winnowed at the Fed level before you hear back whether you get it or not get it.
Yeah.
But I think it would be interesting to know after you have submitted the proposal what they look like. Thanks.
Tom, maybe as you do your director's reports, you do a great job of letting us know everything that's going on. Maybe you could just include some updates in there to let both because TC members can access those reports as you give them to TPPB. So maybe you could just provide an update there. Would that be an easy way to get the information out?
Yeah, maybe what I could do is I could summarize them in the director's report, and then if there's more information needed, we could add that either by answering the questions or add it as an agenda item.
And that would be great. Yeah, just put it in your report. Thanks.
Okay, great. Other comments or questions? Is that all you had then, Bill?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Thanks. Chris, did you have anything else? Okay, thanks so much. So again, hopefully we'll see a lot of people able to attend on Monday. Item 5, announcements from the chair. Just another reminder that very, very great timing for us as we're working on equity and inclusion. You should have received an email from Aiden with a Zoom link for a meeting that's being put on by Tarek and others with the Racial Equity and Social Justice Initiative Public Participation Guide. This is on Monday, August 15th, same day as the Transportation Policy and Planning Board, except it's at 1:00 in the afternoon. And it's a little bit unusual because it wasn't a Zoom invitation that you got. It was just an email from Aiden with a Zoom link included. So if anybody wants, Denise, go ahead.
Will that be recorded, Anne? Because of course it's the middle of my workday, so I'd love to see it, but can't take time out at 1 o'clock.
Aiden, can you maybe find out if that will be recorded and let everybody know?
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, and when you find that out, I think that would be a good opportunity for you to send the email out again and remind everybody that the link is below and you won't get a separate Zoom invitation, because I think we're all very used to getting Zoom invitations, and then like an hour before the meeting, we get a reminder from the Zoom invitation. And in this particular case, I don't think that's going to happen because all alders, all members of boards, committees, and commissions were invited to this meeting. So obviously a huge group of people were invited to attend this meeting. But it's I've had a chance to review the guide, and it's really great and fits right into what we're working on with regard to equity and inclusion. So great opportunity. But Denise, we'll find out if it is going to be recorded, and Aiden will let us know, and hopefully it will. Okay, comments or questions about that? Okay, and with regard to membership on TC, Robbie, Pat, and Darren had the mayor recommended reappointment at the August 2nd meeting for action at the September 6th meeting. So assuming that those go through the council, will continue to be at full membership, which is great. So and that's all I had, unless anybody else had any other announcements. Okay, future agenda items. The potential agenda items for August 24th meeting are included in Legistar. Does anybody have any other topics that you would like to bring forward? Oh, if I can just go back to announcements once more. I asked Aiden there was an article in the Cap Times this morning about parking. Go to you, Chris, and you, Tom Lynch. Very, very interesting article about the cost of parking, and really plays into a lot of the things that we work on at TC. So I asked Aiden to forward that to everybody. So if you didn't have a chance to see it, that you would. Okay, so with regard to future agenda topics, does anybody have anything else that you would like to see added to the list? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. So we're going to have an early meeting this time. So we need a motion to adjourn. Chris?
Move adjournment.
Bill, is that a second?
That is a second.
Okay, we'll assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no, which I don't think has ever happened. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a good one.